What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're talking wildcards ahead of Game Week 24. Quite a hot topic this week, even though we've only had one double Game Week announcement so far. I think people are getting a little bit kind of maybe sick and tired of their old squads where they brought in players for other double Game Weeks that haven't worked out and are considering using the chip this week. So as always, we're going to go through the talking points, some shortlists, drafts, tinkering, all that good stuff. So if you do enjoy it, give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Just before we jump into it, I want to talk about today's sponsor as well. Noob. So happy to say that this video has been sponsored by Noob. If you've not already checked it out, it's a program designed to help you hit your goals, okay? So that could be things like losing weight, it could be simple things like drinking more water, getting better sleep, getting fitter, whatever it is, Noob can help. And if you want to try a free 30-second quiz just to see what it's all about, just go to noon.com/AndyFPL. There's links in the description below. Now, how the program works is rather than telling you here is exactly what you have to do, it's teaching you to think differently about how you may have done things in the past, right? So this is done through daily lessons. They're very convenient. It can take less than 10 minutes a day. You can just log into the program, do one lesson one day, and then do another lesson the next day if you want to. Now, I've left one of my favorite lessons up so far, which I've already read through, but this is learning to love the scale, okay? So this will teach you through it. You can listen to it or you can read through it. And basically, right, for anyone that's tried to lose weight for a long time, you probably do weekly weigh-ins. I used to do this every single Saturday, and you dread it because in case the scale had gone up or if it hadn't come down enough. This is teaching me that daily weigh-ins are okay. Weight will fluctuate. That's okay. As long as ultimately it's coming down over a long period of time. And how scary was it? Not scary at all. So these lessons and psychological tricks and stuff like that are there every single day in the app, and you can do as many as you want. So the lessons are great and really helpful, but there's some other handy tools as well that I really like, which I'm going to run through now. So one of them is just a simple weight graph, okay? So it shows me where I started from, where I'm at now with the field in line, and where I'm going to get to. And that mindset shift to this is where I will get to is a lot different than just waiting to see what happens. So I really like that. If I go home as well, there's also a water tracker which I've been making really good use of. So my long-term goal is to lose weight. My shorter-term goal is just to sleep better and have more energy. And I definitely have that now. When I wake up, I'm feeling really good. I'm not sluggish or anything like that, getting straight out and doing my steps. And this helped by drinking more water. So I've been tracking it through the water tracker here. I've actually nearly finished my one. It's only Monday morning, right? So I'm not all the way through yet, but that will be my third one. So I can just add that on, and it's actually making me drink less stuff like Coke Zero as well. So I've gone from like 4 to 5 cans a day down to 1 to 2, and I've got a lot more energy. So as well as all that, top right hand corner, you've even got your own coach that you can speak to as well. It'll give you lots of handy tips. There really is a hell of a lot involved with this program. So if you want to check it out, noon.com/AndyFPL. It's a free 30-second quiz. It's going to take you no time at all to do. Go and check it out. Link in the description. Give it a go. See what you think. Okay, so let's talk about the pros of using the wildcard this week first. So one of them is you get ahead of postponement trends. What I mean by that is the amount of postponements we've had recently has been quite high, even worse than last season, and last season was a bit of an asterisk one as well. And I do think with the new Premier League rules that have been put in place now for what will constitute a game being called off, we are going to see less and less postponements. But the thing is, a lot of the community will want to see that happen before they react to it, and people are afraid of making too many big transfers or using too many chips because they think they're going to wildcard into a team where loads of games are then going to get called off. That happened to a lot of people that wildcarded around Game Week 21. They wildcarded and straight away a bunch of their players weren't playing and they're kind of in a mess. I don't think that's as likely to happen now with the postponements. So wildcarding to kind of get ahead of that trend, which was a high amount of postponements and now should be lower, could be decent. You also get to load up on players with fixtures to rearrange. That could be ones where the double games have already been announced. It could be ones where you know they're cheap players you can just keep in your squad and at some point they're going to have a double game week. I don't necessarily think that is a massive advantage, to be honest, because other people can always bring those players in later, and you obviously don't want to get stuck with too many players that are just not good for right now just because they happen to have one extra fixture or 2 extra fixtures in the future. But it does allow you to do that if you wanted to. Obviously, you can plan for the double game weeks that are coming up that we know are happening. So you got Man United and Brighton, 2 teams that are doubling. There may well be more announcements for Game Week 25 or 26 before the Game Week 24 deadline. It's not guaranteed or anything like that, but obviously if it does happen, then that might mean more of an advantage for playing the wild card this week. You obviously get to clear your deadwood as well, so that means clearing out players that you just don't want anymore. I'm actually going to show you later on how many players I would probably remove from my team if I was wildcarding this week. It's quite a lot. So you could say that I've got a lot of deadwood, a lot of players that I need to get rid of, right? So it's an interesting process to kind of do that. And obviously for a lot of teams, some of you might have kept Salah, but for a lot of us, we got rid of him. Like I did transfer tips videos where he's being transferred out by like 1 million FPL managers a week. It's an easy way to get him back and maybe do a bunch of other moves that you want to do as well. Because obviously he is going to be a priority if he's back from African Cup of Nations for Game Week 24. Now, interestingly, Egypt beat Ivory Coast, so they're now playing in the quarterfinal. If they get through that quarterfinal against Morocco on Sunday, it means that Salah will then have to play a semi-final. Whether he wins or loses, whether Egypt win or lose, he will play on the 6th of February, either in the final or in the third, fourth place playoff. And then it will be Game Week 24 deadline on the 8th and Liverpool play on the 10th. So there is a chance if he gets through the quarterfinal that he might miss Game Week 24. We don't know for sure, but if he doesn't, if he's going to be back, he's almost like a prime captaincy candidate straight away. So to be able to get him back and readjust your whole squad for Game Week 25 and getting a bunch of players with good fixtures to come could be worthwhile. Okay, so what are the cons or the disadvantages for using it this week, right? One of them is how many more announcements are we actually going to get? It's all well and good me sitting here saying we could get more double game weeks for 25 and 26. What if we don't? Is Brighton and Man United doubling in 25 enough to wildcard on its own? Not really. Again, it doesn't mean that wildcarding is a bad thing to do this week, but it's less of an advantage if there's like kind of less double game weeks to play into. And realistically, right, it's not like you need 3 players from each of those teams. As long as you've got a captain and then maybe 1 or 2 others, if there's players you like De Gea, Dalot, Trossard, maybe, Cucurella, etc., then these are players you can probably get without wildcarding. So that's something to think about. Everyone's team is different, of course. What about Game Week 30 to 38? So I did a chip video either last week or the week before. And because there's so many fixtures to rearrange, and again, none of this is set in stone because we don't really know exactly when they're going to be rearranged, but there will be double game weeks after Game Week 30, and it could get to a point, according to Ben as well on Twitter, Ben Krellin, where we could have like 4 to 5 double game weeks in a row, like Game Week 31 to 36, where there's just double game weeks every week. Some of them much smaller than others. But if it falls in such a way where you can wildcard into a team where you've got a double game week captain every single week or near enough, it might be worth saving later on. Obviously, we don't know exactly how that's going to happen. So a lot of people, you kind of get two different types of people with this. One, they want to keep the wild card for the unknown. And 2, they just want to use it now because they can see exactly how much of an advantage it could be, and then they'll plan later on. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong, to be honest, but we've not really been in a position where there's potentially going to be so many double game weeks, and obviously there's going to be blank game weeks as well. So if you've only got 1 free hit chip, it might be worth saving your wild card to later. It's going to be interesting. I don't have a right or wrong answer for you. Right now, I'm kind of leaning towards holding it. But again, I would make a lot of changes if I used it this week. So that's kind of an interesting point to think about. How many core changes, how many core players do you actually need to change? Like, really need to change? It's very easy for me to say, well, I'd remove like 10, 11 players. But how many of those do I actually need to move? Probably not as many. I don't probably need to remove as many as I think. Obviously, how many double game week 25 players do you really need? You probably just need, like I said, a captain, maybe 1 or 2 other players. Is Salah essential? Like, if it does get to the point where we're not quite sure if he's going to be back for game week 24, then he can probably wait until game week 26 when he plays Norwich. Because if he's going to miss 24, we obviously don't need to captain him. Game week 25, a lot of people will probably captain a Man United player anyway. You don't have to, but a lot of people will do that. So then Salah wouldn't be essential until game week 26, I would say. So that's something to think about. And obviously, how viable is bench boost? So I've built a draft team coming up. I want to see how viable a bench boost soon might be, because bench boost, yes, should ideally be used in a double game week, but for me, it has to be used very soon after a wildcard because it's the easiest time to set it up. So you need to see whether you can get the players you want for the bench boost, but they're also good going forward as well. Okay, so just some things to consider when you're building your draft. So one of them is don't get stuck loading players with lots of fixtures to rearrange, necessarily. Anyway, I know this kind of contradicts an earlier point, but what I mean by that is it's all well and good a player's got a few double game weeks to come at some point. But if you don't know when they are, there's no point in spending a huge chunk of your budget on a player that at some point might have a double long time in the future, but right now they're just no good to you, right? Obviously the weeks for rearranging these fixtures are starting to run out, right? We're going into game week 24, the season only goes to game week 38. They will almost certainly get played within that kind of time frame, but unless that player kind of fits into your squad, there's probably no point in keeping it. And obviously, you know, if a player's got like 3 or 4 games to rearrange, that's obviously different to someone that's got 1 as well. They're probably more relevant, those players that got more doubles, because they're going to have to be put in kind of sooner rather than later, otherwise they're going to run out of time. So don't put players in for the sake of it. There is currently a blank game week in 27 for Liverpool, Arsenal, Leicester and Chelsea. Potentially there might be games on for those teams depending on what happens with rearrangements. I'm not quite sure about that yet. But right now, those 4 teams are blanking. So if you're going to kind of triple up on Liverpool and maybe have 1 or 2 Arsenal players as well, you need to take into account that they will, at the moment, blank in game week 27. Now, if you've got 2 free hits left, you could potentially use one that week. But again, there might be better times in the future to use the free hits. You might, considering you're on a wild card and you can plan for the future, that might be something to think about as well. Do you need to triple up on Liverpool? Do you need 1, 2, 3 Arsenal players as well? I mean, Chelsea are obviously blanking a lot at the moment, so we don't really need them. And Leicester, there's not a huge amount of choice, maybe Daka, Maddison, etc. But it's Liverpool and Arsenal that I think more people are likely to put into their wildcard teams right now. Obviously, how will you get rid of your double game week 25 players? If you load up, how many of those do you want to keep long term? Like Brighton's fixtures afterwards are not too bad. Man United's as well. But obviously for the main Man United players, especially in attack, Ronaldo and Fernandes are a lot of money. So if you have one of those in, what's the plan for kind of offloading them later on? And again, how bad is your team? Like I said for the Collins, how many players do you really need to get rid of? Think about that before you hit that wildcard button. Okay, we'll just quickly look at a player shortlist, then we'll come on to the actual draft that I've come up with. I think for core players, they're almost like, it's just another way of saying kind of must-have, essential players that I think would be in every single draft that I build. Maybe Luka Dean, not quite, but I think he probably would be in a final draft that I would have. Cancelo, Trent, Salah and Bowen would almost certainly be in every single draft that I do. I mean, right now, to be fair, Man City and West Ham both don't have double game weeks to kind of rearrange. They've got no fixtures to reschedule. At some point they might do if they get further and further into cup competitions like the FA Cup, etc. But right now they don't. So that's something worth considering. But I just think their fixtures right now are good. They're good prices, etc. You'd probably want them in your draft anyway. There's quite a few like favourite players as well that I'd maybe try and fit in. So Foden I really like as a value player in the Man City attack. Again, they've got a couple of really nice short-term fixtures, and De Bruyne might be a step too far in terms of trying to fit him into the team. I think Ronaldo or Fernandes I would have to have in there. I just don't see why you would build a wildcard team and not set it up to have one of the best captains for Game Week 25, which will almost certainly be Ronaldo or Fernandes. So I'd have to have one of them. I still think Rafinha's great value, despite hardly owning him this season, it feels like. And Broja, I just think it feels like, anyway, we're going into a kind of period in FPL where there are quite a few potentially good strikers, like Antonio, Watkins, Calvert-Lewin are all kind of good prices. Calvert-Lewin has penalties. They've got good fixtures. And you could make an argument to have any of them, even all 3. But if you can't fit them in because of the rest of the team, especially if you're trying to build a bench boost and have a playing squad, which you probably should be, then someone like Broja at 5.2 million could be a much better option that you can bench from time to time. And I do think the kind of teams and stuff that I've made usually have kind of a 4 at the back, which is similar to what we were doing, I don't know, a few weeks ago with kind of double Chelsea, Cancelo and Trent. So they're kind of the players that I've been looking at, but obviously we've got to fit a few more in. So let's look at the team. Okay, so this is just a draft, obviously, and things might change. We've still got kind of like just about a week and a half until the deadline, so things could change. We could get injury news, we could get more information about double game weeks and stuff like that. And obviously, if we get major information, then there'll be more videos to talk about that kind of stuff. But right now, we're talking about everything with the information we got right now. Now, there is some money in the bank with this team, 1.3 million. As always, your team might be able to afford more, you might be able to afford less. Obviously, this isn't saying just go out and copy this team. It's just something that I kind of came up with. And then, like I said, it is more of a 4-4-2, but you have got 3 playing players on the bench, outfield players, Broja, Ramsey and Dalot, and you've got another playing keeper as well in Sanchez. I think, obviously, if you want a bench boost, which you should if you're planning to use a wild card now, you should be thinking about the bench boost soon. Because the reason that I think you have to do it straight after a wild card, not necessarily the next game week, but very soon, like 1, 2, maybe 3 max game weeks later, is because later on, you don't want to be setting up for a bench boost and then having to ignore your first 11 or taking loads of hits. Because if you have to take loads of hits to improve your 11 and the bench to get out a good bench boost, you're kind of minimizing the advantage for the bench boost in the first place. So I would try and use it then. So I've got a complete playing squad of players. One thing I'll quickly show you before I talk about the rest of the team. So this is the team that I've built, obviously, in Photoshop. This is my current team. So if I come to this, right, just to show you how many players are not in the wildcard draft I would be tempted with, not necessarily final, but tempted with. King's not there. Antonio's not there, although Antonio could be in instead of Calvert-Lewin. The advantage Calvert-Lewin's got is he's got fixtures to rearrange. Gray's not in there. Foden's not in there, although I do really like Foden. It's just hard to fit him in with Ronaldo and Salah. Jota's not there either. Trossard's not there, although obviously he's got a double game week. So although I don't think he's a great option for my own team, I'm not looking to rush him out. Livramento's not there, Dawson's not there, Alonso's not there, De Gea's not there, and Foster's not there either. So interestingly, the squad that I'm saying I would think about building this week, and again, I might tweak it a little bit before the deadline if I was going to use the wild card, only has 4 players that I currently own. So Trent, Cancelo, Bowen and Ronaldo. Obviously, I don't have Salah, so that's quite a big miss. And I could have, if I was wildcard, I could go for Fernandes over Ronaldo. I'll talk about that in a minute. But that's quite interesting, right? Now, obviously, if we had a free wildcard every single week, we'd always make lots of changes. So, for example, if I just come back, Trossard's got a double, not worried about having him. De Gea's also got a double, not worried about having him. Jota's fine for now. Foden's fine for now. And Antonio's got Watford at home, so I'm not really complaining about him either. So suddenly, at my kind of core first 11, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 back. So that's the kind of test almost I would do for your team if you're kind of on the fence about wildcarding. But I just thought I'd go through that. Just coming back to the team, the thing I like about Calvert-Lewin is more games to rearrange than Antonio. So Antonio does have 3 really good fixtures now. Watford, Leicester, Newcastle. I think it's in that order. But the thing is, if I'm ever needing to captain a West Ham player, so for example, if Salah's not back for 24, I'm sure he will be, but I'm just saying if he's not, then Bowen would probably be my captain this week. So I wouldn't even captain Antonio anyway, as much as I love the guy. So Calvert-Lewin could be the better option. As I said earlier, I don't see why you'd build a wildcard team and not have a Man United Man United attacker in there to captain. You could put De Gea in there. You could even captain Dalot if you really wanted to, I guess, although I'm not sure many people would do that. I think you'd have to have Ronaldo or Fernandes. The reason I've gone for Ronaldo is there's quite a few midfielders that I like the look of. So Rafinha, great value. Bowen and Salah would definitely be in there. Then you've got Martinelli because he's quite cheap. And Arsenal got a lot of fixtures to rearrange. So again, if I just bring up the wildcard team here, he's only 5.4 million. Yes, they have a lot of blank game weeks coming up, 25 and 27 currently, but you've got a squad of 15 players. You've got players that can play in his place, and they've got Liverpool, Wolves, Spurs, and Chelsea to rearrange. So they haven't got easy double game weeks, but they have got a lot of fixtures to play. So appearance points, potential attack and returns, Martinelli has looked fairly nailed. He could be a good option, right? And I think he's still, I don't think he's got injured or anything. I know he hasn't got the greatest injury record. But yeah, he's currently fine. So as long as he's still good by the time Game Week 24 comes around, he could be decent. Broja's there on the bench. So if we think about these 3 players on the bench, Sanchez, Broja, Ramsey and Dalot, and we kind of have a look at their upcoming fixtures. So Broja this week or next week, Spurs, Man United is not ideal. The fixtures after that, though, are really good. And he's been starting more often than not recently. So he started the last 3 games. He started kind of last, 7 of 8 games. So he's getting a lot of minutes. Dalot's obviously been starting recently as well. His fixtures coming up are pretty good. Like, you could bench boost him in any of these fixtures here, really. Ramsey, again, has been starting for Villa. In fact, I lost count of the amount. He's started a lot of games, right? You can see that. He's got Leeds, Newcastle, Watford. Again, you could bench boost him soon. So you've already got Dalot with good fixtures. You've got... who was the other one? Ramsey with good fixtures. Sanchez would be your double game week keeper for game week 25 when Brighton played twice. And in game week 25, Spurs have got Wolves, so you could bench boost Lloris as well. And then you just take, Broja against Man United is maybe not ideal, but you probably just take that as well. Now, they are single game week players that you'd be bench boosting, But again, if you're wildcarding now, I really would just set up to bench boost soon. So unless we get more double game week announcements, that's kind of what you'd have to do. The rest of the team kind of sells itself almost. Like Luca Dean, fixtures to rearrange. Villa have got good fixtures right now. I don't think we can say nailed just yet, because obviously he's only had a couple of games, but the fact he's gone straight in and played both, he's looking good. Cancelo and Trent, again, very obvious why you go for them. And then Laporte is just good value, I think, at Man City. And you'd mostly play 4 at the back. But if you didn't want to, you can either bring in Broja and maybe even Ramsey for the odd time as well. But that's probably the core team that you're going to be playing most weeks. The reason that I haven't kept De Gea in is because they've got no more games to rearrange after that Brighton game. And I think you can just have Dallo in there, who's a little bit cheaper. Whereas if we come back to the wildcard team, Lloris has got 3 fixtures to rearrange, and Sanchez has obviously got the double game week already locked in for game week 25 and still has another game against Spurs to rearrange as well. So that's probably the 2 goalkeepers that I would go for. Calvert-Lewin's the one I'm not 100% sure about, because I do like Antonio's next 3. Maybe subconsciously I'm kind of splitting the risk a little bit by having 1 West Ham and 1 Everton. I don't think, unless Villa had double game weeks announced soon, that I would go for Watkins, having put this team together. So that's how the team's looking. I will just really quickly do a tiny bit of tinkering, because if you don't want Ronaldo, you could just have Antonio in from the start. So let's see what this does. I've not actually checked this before starting to record. So that would give you 6.1 million. So it's not quite enough to go all the way up to Fernandes, but we are getting close. So if I put in Fernandes instead, he'd then be your double game week captain, and you'd have to just find 0.2 million from somewhere, right? So I don't know, maybe instead of Bro, you go for a really cheap 4, but then that would spoil the bench boost. You could downgrade Rafinha to Martinelli and maybe get Rafinha back later on. But ultimately, depending on how you get the money, again, it could just be Laporte, right? Maybe you don't want to play 4 at the back too often. You could swap Laporte out for another really cheap player, maybe like, I don't know, like Ain't Nuri possibly for Wolves. They've got some okay-ish fixtures coming up, 2 to rearrange. He's very cheap as well. If I just put him in 4.3 million, that gives you 1.2 million to spend. So you could even go for Martinelli instead of Ramsey and play 3-5-2 most weeks and just play Trent, Cancelo and Luca Dean, and maybe swap in Ain't Nuri and Dallo when you want to. But again, I would just have that Man United attacker for game week 25, because you've still got the safety blanket of Salah as well. And then after that, Fernandes could become De Bruyne if you wanted to. You could swap him down to a Foden and then spread the money elsewhere. Maybe get a more expensive striker. Maybe upgrade Broja. The kind of options are not limitless, but there's a lot of ways you can play it. So I wouldn't build a team and need lots of transfers straight away. But I think having Fernandes and having the flexibility to go to pretty much whatever midfielder you want is an option. But I just don't know. I still think Ronaldo might be the slightly better way to play it and just have your midfield in place. I think whether you go Ronaldo or Fernandes, I still like Ronaldo because he's on penalties, right? But I think which one you go for depends on what your next transfer is. So if there's a specific midfielder you want to get, maybe you just start with Fernandes. If there's a specific striker, maybe you start with Ronaldo instead. But that's the draft I've come up with. A little bit of tinkering. I don't think there's too many other changes I would make. You could possibly put Foden, Jota in there as well. But the good thing about this is there's only 3 players from Liverpool and Arsenal. Trent, Salah and Martinelli. So in terms of that game week 27, you've at least got 3 players that can come on and play for them. And obviously you might maybe use transfers on those players if you wanted to. Maybe you get rid of Martinelli. But ultimately you've got a team there that can deal with it. And a lot of players are going to have 3 players from those teams anyway, even without a wild card, right? So I don't think that's too much of an issue. Obviously, you could go for Ramsdale in goal potentially instead, but I kind of like the Sanchez and Lloris double up there. So let me know what you think about that draft. What would you change? And obviously, if we get any more information about doubles and stuff like that, I might do a kind of redraft in a week or so's time. There we go. Wildcard in game week 24. How many of you are thinking of using the chip? Let me know in the comments below. And I guess let me know after this video, are you more likely or less likely to use it as well? I've got to be honest, a bit like the free hit. I built that free hit team. I think it was for game week 22, and I was like, no, I definitely can't use it this week after building it. With the wildcard, it's a little bit different. I'm kind of liking the team, and it is a lot of changes. It's just whether or not I actually need to make those changes, and I'm not sure I do. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Do not forget to check out Noob if you haven't already. Link in the description below. You can take your free 30-second quiz and see what you think. Otherwise, I'll leave it there and I'll catch you again soon.